I still remember the day Claire came into this world, tiny and full of promise, her presence filling the room with a kind of warmth and wonder I'd never known. I was young then, uncertain and full of dreams. I thought I'd never give up. But when I looked into her eyes, something changed. I wanted to give her everything, every ounce of love and comfort, every opportunity I could afford. She was my world, and like any parent, I hoped the world would be kind to her in return. As the years went by, I did everything I could to make her life beautiful. I worked overtime to put her through the best schools, stretched my budget for the piano lessons she asked for, and saved every extra penny so she could go on the study abroad trip she'd dreamed of. I was proud of the person she was becoming, smart, charming, ambitious. But as much as I cherished her successes, there were moments that filled me with a quiet unease. Claire began to see the sacrifices I made not as gifts, but as expectations she deserved. She rarely thanked me, but I brushed it off, believing she'd understand one day when she had her own family. Years later, that day never came. Instead, the little girl who used to run to me with arms wide open grew into a young woman who barely had time to return my calls. When she did call, it was usually because she needed something: a little help with rent, tuition assistance, a loan to fund a business venture that never quite took off. I kept giving, hoping that somehow my support would remind her of the love we once shared. Then she announced her engagement. She was ecstatic, and I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe this milestone would bring us closer. She had grand visions for the wedding, something elegant and memorable, something that would stand out. I tried suggesting a small, intimate gathering, something cozy and meaningful, but Claire brushed it off. "Mom," she said with a sigh, as if I were missing the obvious, "this is my one special day. It has to be perfect." And so, against my better judgment, I agreed to fund her dream wedding. I liquidated some savings, adjusted my plans, and mentally prepared myself to watch my little girl walk down the aisle, thinking it would all be worth it to see her happy. But what began as simple requests soon grew into demands. She wanted a designer dress, the latest in floral arrangements, high-end catering, and an extravagant venue. Each week, there seemed to be something new she had to have for the day to be just right. When I gently raised concerns about the mounting costs, she looked at me with thinly veiled irritation. "Mom, I thought you'd be excited about this. I thought you wanted me to have the best." Each word stung, a reminder of the widening gap between us. I bit back my frustration, reminding myself that this was for her happiness, a final gesture of love to mark this new chapter in her life. But the demands kept coming. I found myself dipping into retirement savings, cutting corners, and sacrificing more than I ever thought I'd have to for the sake of a single day. One night, we had an argument over the guest list, of all things. She wanted to invite a group of friends I'd never even heard of, and I suggested inviting a few family members instead. Her response was sharp and hurtful. "Why do you always make things so difficult?" she snapped. "It's like you don't even care about my happiness." The words were like a punch to the gut. I felt as though I were looking at a stranger, someone who saw me not as a parent who loved her, but as an obstacle in her path. Still, I swallowed the pain and pressed on, convincing myself that everything would be fine once the wedding day arrived. But just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A week before the wedding, Claire called me, her voice cold and detached. "Mom," she began, "I think it would be best if you didn't come to the wedding." I felt my heart sink. "What do you mean, Claire?" She sighed as if I were a child who simply couldn't understand. "This whole process has been really stressful, and I feel like you've been adding to that stress. I need everything to go smoothly, and I just don't think you being there will help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything I'd given, after every sacrifice and sleepless night spent trying to make her dream a reality, she was asking me not to attend her wedding. My voice shook as I asked, "Is this really what you want?" "Yes," she replied, with the finality of someone who'd already moved on. "I think it's for the best." The phone call ended, leaving me in stunned silence. It felt as though the world had shifted beneath my feet, leaving me to fall into a void of betrayal and heartbreak. I spent the following days in a haze, unable to process the reality that I wouldn't be there to watch my daughter marry, that the love I'd poured into her life had been so callously disregarded. On the day of the wedding, I didn't know what to do with myself. The house felt empty, filled only with the echoes of memories and the lingering question of where I had gone wrong. I thought back on the years, on every time I'd given in to her demands, hoping it would teach her love and gratitude. Instead, I had enabled a sense of entitlement that now stood between us like an unbreakable wall. As the hours passed, I found myself letting go of the dream I'd held on to for so long. I realized that no amount of sacrifice or love could change someone who refused to see beyond themselves. And as painful as it was, I knew that I had to start living for myself, to stop giving pieces of myself to someone who didn't value them. In the end, Claire's wedding marked not just the start of her marriage, but the beginning of my journey to reclaim my own life. I had given her everything I could, and it was finally time to stop. As difficult as it was, I understood that sometimes love meant letting go, even if it left a hollow ache in its wake.